Hi everyone, let's talk about the month behind us now and what plans are going forward. So July is officially wrapping up and we are now in a brand new month, and it has been a very busy month to say the least. There's been some ups and downs to July, to be frankly honest. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the ups. So the first one is that the flowers are here and I'm getting a nice consistent bloom for a lot of my different varieties I have growing out there right now. This means a lot of consistent bouquets that I can then take to different shows and markets and things around. So far, I have participated in 3 markets to try to figure out what I want to do, what area I want to sell in, and just try to get my name out there. The markets overall have been a really great experience to get my foot in the door and seeing what it feels like to be selling flowers. The first market I attended was an outdoor market, which was in a decent area of a lot of suburban growth. And unfortunately, though, the weather, I think, was a huge deterrent to getting folks out there to that market. And it was also a huge deterrent to myself, as it was a struggle to make certain that the fresh flowers I had were not just going to fall over and wilt throughout the day. I was consistently feeding my mason jars ice in order to kind of keep everything going, but it was a bit of a struggle and it was extremely physically hot. The other market I did is an indoor market, and this market was more crafty, I want to say, and so I wasn't holding out much hope for this one, to be completely honest, but it was a relief to kind of have a place that was indoors and in an AC unit, because that could be a really good draw for folks that did not want to be out in the hot heat. Unfortunately, it is kind of, I don't want to say it's not on a main drag, it's a little bit out of the way, so folks aren't going to be seeing it, driving through town or anything. It's one of those things that they really have to see the marketing or see the advertising to know when it's going on. Strategy for this was to self-promote as much as I possibly could to that community, to let them know that I was bringing flowers that were fresh grown, fresh picked from my garden, and not just the everyday stuff that they can pick up at the local grocery store. And so I did have success using this tactic a couple times. In fact, I had a couple of folks, younger folks, who came in who actually bought multiple different bouquets from me and arrangements. It's worked so far. I'm getting my name out there and getting the word out that I'm here to sell flowers and arrangements. And so it was a really great experience on both of those. I think that without me doing that additional footwork and advertising, I don't think I would have made hardly any sales, unfortunately. A lot of the clientele coming through this, outside of the folks that were drawn in by my ads, were pretty old, pretty much geriatric folks. And so that's a little unfortunate, but I'm still going to kind of, keep my head up and kind of keep pushing, I think, with that particular market, just to see if I can, 1, consistently have product, and 2, see if I can get more folks to be coming in who may not have been fully aware of that, until I can find possibly a better market or venue, or just kind of wait until the temps go down enough to where it's a little bit more feasible for me to have products outdoors. So one of the interesting things I did learn in this more recent market I did, which was geared towards a kind of like Christmas and July theme, is that I pushed myself a little bit out of my comfort boundaries again into making something a little bit different and not just showing up with fresh bouquets. This time I wanted to use a little bit more of my dried flowers that I had on hand to create something unique and interesting to go along with that theme. And so I ended up creating some Christmas ornament type deals in order to sell out to the public. I personally really enjoyed making these. They were just your standard shove a bunch of dried flowers into a bulb and sell it for $10 deal. I really did put some effort into these, where I had my dried flowers in there, I had moss, and then I actually went out of my way to get some little tiny accessory accoutrements, whatever you want to call them, some little faux butterflies and things like that, just to kind of give it a nice earthy tone. I also included some lace accents around the top of the ornaments as well, just to kind of, give it a nice folksy vibe going onto it. But I really enjoyed doing that. Even back in my artist days, I always enjoyed making like little dioramas and little display things to accompany my art at art shows, and I actually used to get a lot of compliments on those things. And so this to me was no different than having fun making those. As you can see, I have a bunch of ornaments still left over for when I want to do that. And I did sell a couple, not nearly as many as I thought, but again, the clientele we had was really old, and most of the people who did buy mine were a little bit on the younger side. So let's talk about some of the interesting things that have been going on, maybe not so great things that have been going on with this month. The heat has been awful. It has been consistently, it feels like, in the triple digits or upper 90s, which I am really shocked has not completely taken a huge toll on all of my flowers. They are still mostly hanging in there, though. I can tell some, though, are getting very tired and very worn, which is a little concerning because I still have quite a bit of summer season to get through. So I'm just gonna kind of hope that we can maintain this. The other downside is this year we've had what the locals deem a monsoon, which is basically where our monsoon season is a giant bust. So far, we've only had maybe a couple days of good rainfall, which hasn't really amounted to a ton. I would say we might have gotten like an inch or an inch and a half, but that goes quickly, right? I mean, out here in the desert, you might be able to capture that water and just kind of keep it there for a few days, which I did. It was nice to not have to hand water everything or use my irrigation, but it goes quickly. It's not going to last very long. And so, you know, we look at the forecast every day and there's always like a 50% chance of rain, 55%. And then lo and behold, the clouds either go over us or just never bother to form. So it's a little frustrating because I know my plants don't want to be hand watered with the highly chlorinated city water I am feeding them. They really want that nice fresh rainwater from the skies, and so it's really tough in order to kind of see them struggling with that. The other unfortunate thing that I found out recently, and I don't think I've mentioned this on other videos, is that I found out that I'm pretty certain the whole front of our yard, before we moved in here, I'm pretty certain that it was treated with pesticides because, as I've mentioned before, those front beds that I had planted with yarrow and lavender and other things that just never quite would get up to speed. They would die extremely young. They might get maybe under a foot tall and then just croak out of nowhere. What really tipped it off to me is that I was growing some really nice sunflowers up front. It was a different variety. It's called Tayo variety. So they have a little bit bigger heads, but they don't grow nearly as tall as a mammoth. I was testing those out and noticed they were really stunted for such the longest time. Then out of nowhere, I noticed that the leaves started developing these really dark spots, almost like black spots. And I'm not talking like dots, I'm talking like big sections on there. And then I noticed that the edges of the leaves were starting to crumble really badly. Thought maybe it was just underwatering, so I watered a little bit more heavier, but it really had no effect on them. And I also noticed the new beds that I had created, the sunflowers I put in, again, they got to about 6 inches tall, and then they all started like just shriveling up into a crisp. And so that was really frustrating to see things, and you're so excited and you're like, yes, they finally took root and they're doing it and we're gonna have a nice good flush of flowers up front, and then they just crash and burn so quickly. I have amaranth up there that is still barely going. It's not happy. I got it to turn around slightly. Everything else up there is just not taken. It's just really struggling. It's either really stunted or it just, again, the pesticide has gotten up into its roots. Once its roots hit a certain point, I think, onto our ground, then unfortunately that's kind of the death knell for them. So it's unfortunate I can't use that front space. I might be able to amend it at some point, either by doing raised beds or possibly just trying to seed with a bunch of sunflowers to soak those toxins up. For right now, it's not viable and usable, so it's a lot of square footage that I'm losing, which is very unfortunate. The Bermuda grass and weeds have completely taken over at this point. I've just kind of let them be, and then we kind of come through with the weed eater every so often as we need to. My saddle hoe, stirrup hoe is just not making hardly a dent into anything, and so at this point I'm just kind of at a fail or thrive kind of thing. So that's kind of where I'm at with that, which is typical. I think a lot of us flower farmers are extremely burnt out at this season. I can definitely see why. It's just really hard to stay on top of everything, and you've got so many other things and frustrations that are just beating you down. I put a post out not too long ago kind of talking about it, how we've been planning this stuff for pretty much a year in advance to have this garden that we have nowadays, and to have things not make it, like seedlings that you start and they don't make it, things you transplant out and they just get all burnt to a crisp and you don't have time to restart them. You have bad soil, the water's crap. It's just things like that that really kind of beat you down and make you just completely just frustrated with the entire process. I can wholly understand why a lot of, folks just kind of walk away from this. But what this has done, honestly, is it's made me buckle down, and I'm proud that I have grown what I have grown here. I wish I could have grown more. I have so many empty spaces out in my rows still that just did not get filled this season. And I might have time to get some more things in the ground, but for right now, they are empty. But this has really kind of, I think, affirmed for me what I want to do. And this also goes to saying for Paul, my husband, who has also been doing the vegetable side of this, as he has struggled massively with growing. And while we have gotten some things, it is not nearly the bounty and harvest that we had completely expected, and not within the timeline or time frame that we had also expected. And when I say that, I don't mean like, oh, it's just a week off. No, I'm talking like things that we had in our calendar set to harvest months ago, and they're still not even near ready. So the heat out here, the elements are really beating us down. And so this is the next point I want to talk about, which is also kind of going into this uncertainty as to what's going on. I have not ordered my seeds for fall starting yet. And the reason is because we are thinking about pretty much a major life change once more with being out here. It has kind of affirmed what we want to do in our lives. What the Japanese call their ikigai, which is essentially, what is your sole purpose? What is it that drives you to get up in the morning? And that can be something as simple as, I'm here to take care of my children. I am here, because I love my cat. I love to, paint. I love my job that I work at. Or it's just simple things like that. Or it can be things, like I enjoy my hobby. It gets me out of bed. I love to cook. I love, in my case, I found that I enjoy flower farming and flower gardening. And I have rekindled an appreciation for that, which I lost obviously when we lived on the road. And so I have grown an appreciation for actually learning how to grow things and start basically from seed to full plant, and to see that progress. I'm not just running to the box store and picking up a bunch of transplants and throwing them in the ground. I have worked this process from start to finish. So the big news that I do kind of want to share, and this is still completely tentative, this is not set in stone, but I think we are going to find a place that is more viable to our vision. Somewhere we can grow sustainably and sufficiently without the need of a lot of additional efforts, a lot of additional water, somewhere where we're more comfortable and understand the seasons a little bit better. Arizona is not it, and I would say we gave our freshman try. I could not see this happening out on areas in which you do not have a well, or you do not have an easy access of water. And so that was kind of an eye-opener this season, to seeing how much water we have put out and used to sustain this garden. And guys, I had shade cloth going on. I had everything you could possibly think of to try to help keep moisture in, mulching. Like, I did what I could to help and to try to create some microclimates and things. We did have shade from neighboring trees, and some of our oleanders are more mature enough. And thinking about where to place things during certain periods of the day, but it's just water is the necessity, and that's something we just don't freely have available out here. Unfortunately, a hard reality that kind of smacked us in the face with this. I don't want to go into the politics of it. I'm just here to say that living out here, while has been, it's beautiful ground out here, there's nothing, in my opinion, that can ever replace the southwestern desert of this area and the beauty of it. And there's just amazing sunsets you get every night nearly out here. But you need water to live. You need water to grow. And that's unfortunately not something that is out here. And so I'm very much teetering right now with deciding if I want to continue this project or if we need to just go somewhere else. We have been discussing our options, and we're not ready to quite put anything out there yet as a definite, but we have been researching and looking into different areas and places. And so while I am going to finish out this growing season for the summer and the fall with whatever I manage to get, depending on what we decide this fall, is going to basically plan our entirety of next year. So whether that is a true growing season or not, that is still in the works, and we are still trying to figure this all out. So, you know, we're still young. We still have, I think, a good amount of time to do what we want to do. You know, knock on wood that we're still here. But I think it's kind of nice that we found what ticks, what makes us want to get up, what makes us, you know, happy and content with being. And I would much rather do that than to just beat my head constantly, to feel frustration with, you know, not being able to grow successfully here. And yeah, there's other aspects to this too I don't want to go into because they're not appropriate to and I don't want to cause drama, but essentially, you know, we need to find that place where Paul and I are a good fit and we have a good community to surround us and to support us. With that, I am going to go ahead and end the video and just leave it at that for now, and then we will talk a little bit more in the next coming months, I think, as we finalize those plans. And if something's not working out on the timeline, we might have a season next year. It's just so hard to say. But for now, thank you so much for watching, my friends. Take care. I'll see you next time.